years old, and I'm going to be 50, so about 40 years ago.
Well, I didn't mean to go there, but...
okay. I've earned it.
When you first met her, was she married to your brother?
Yeah.
Okay. And had their family started at that point?
Yeah, they came back from Texas, Donna, with my nephew, Jay, in their arms, my oldest nephew.
Okay, so you were 9, she was 20 or thereabouts?
Mid-20s.
Okay. And over the years you got to know each other fairly well. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, and you indicated that the family was a close-knit family.
Yes.
All right. What kind of mother was she?
Donna loved her sons very much. Controlling, though. She loved them, but she was controlling of them in some ways.
You mean in terms of discipline?
No. I mean, like, she wanted my nephew Jay to play football. He didn't want to play. Football was a big thing in Texas. She made, like, a huge deal of it until he played.
Right. Friday Night Lights and that stuff.
Right. Like, somewhat controlling of wanting them to do certain things that were important to her.
All right. And did the boys seem eager to please their mom?
I was pretty close to my nephews. They both had a complicated relationship with their parents.
And did that change as they grew older?
Yes. Jay in particular, I think, wanted a fresh start. He had a tough time with his mom and dad.
He had a tough time with his mom and his dad?
My brother and his wife argued a lot.
All right, before you tell me that, could you say yes or no?
I'm sorry. Yes.
All right. Now, you said Donna loved her sons. Was it your sense that she loved them both equally, or did she have a favorite?
No, I didn't feel like she had a favorite.
Okay, so she was equal in her feelings and her love for her children.
Yes.
All right. Did you ever see her harm either of the boys in any way?
No.
Okay. Other perhaps than an occasional spanking or a grounding, she never was physically abusive to either one of them?
When Ramsay got older, my brother would say they would argue, and he would kind of like have to get in the middle, sort of, because Ramsay was a lot to deal with. It was
He was a big kid.
Not that he would have to pull her off of Ramsay. They would argue. I mean, it was hard to deal with someone who has mental health issues, I know. And I think it was a lot for her. My brother ran a lot of interference and had a lot of guilt that he couldn't, earn more money, have fancier doctors, that kind of thing.
One point of clarification. You said after high school, Ramsay initially went to Western Michigan?
I thought he went, I know at one point he was at Eastern for a semester, and I'm sorry I don't know exactly I know he wound up at Wayne State. I know he was at Western because I went up there, and I think at some point he may have been at Eastern for a term, but I was in law school at the time, so I'm not sure, the exact order.
And we know that Western's in Kalamazoo.
Right.
So you went there to visit him.
I went there to court with my sister-in-law, which is what caused the family estrangement.
Okay, let's focus on that. When Ramsay was at Western attending college, he was arrested for some minor drug infraction. Isn't that so?
My understanding was he had an MIP from talking to my sister-in-law, but kind of made what I would call a rookie mistake. I was only a defense attorney about a year, and I thought I could just go up there and get it taken under advisement.
Okay, so it wasn't a drug possession, it was an alcohol possession.
I thought it was, yeah, I thought it was alcohol.
And
Yeah.
you were involved because you went up there as his lawyer.
I did.
Okay. And in fact, it was that was the straw that broke the camel's back and resulted that his parents brought him home and he attended Wayne State, or shortly thereafter, correct?
I don't know because my sister-in-law got mad at me in the hallway, screamed and yelled at me, told me off, and I never saw my nephew again for 8.5 years.
So wait a minute.
So I don't know if that's the reason that they pulled him out. I assume so.
Okay, and you must have forgot to talk about that when Mr. Cataldo was asking you. But it sounds like it was a very stressful event. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Not yeah.
So
yes.
you
yes.
somehow learned about the alcohol arrest.
I went up. They asked for my help. I just had given birth to my daughter a couple weeks before that.
And you were a brand new lawyer, correct?
I was.
And you tried to help your nephew as best as you could from this misdemeanor he was charged with.
I did.
And his mother or him or both are yelling at you in the hallway.
No, Ramsay was thanking me and hugging me. Donna,
his mother,
my sister-in-law, got very upset, and I understand when people are talking about their kids, you know, sometimes you just aren't. She just basically lost it. She was yelling, and, you know, the court officer saying, you got to get her calmed down, and, you know, I wasn't maybe the best at dealing with it.
She was upset with you?
Yes.
You were there trying to help, and she was upset with you.
She was very angry with me, yes.
Do you have any recall as to the source of her anger? Why was she mad?
It sounds kind of crazy, but yes, my husband was a Wayne County prosecutor at the time, a homicide prosecutor. He was friends with a prosecutor up in the county where Ramsay got the ticket. I thought, you know, if I went back there and talked to that person, maybe Tom would give him a call, and they might be willing to take it under advisement, which is something that they did routinely, you know, even without the phone call. So I thought it was like a layup, you know.
At least in Wayne County, that's how it used to be.
Yes. So I misjudged my jurisdiction. The guy that my husband knew left. It just didn't work out the way I thought it would, and Ramsay got, I think, 6 months of probation. So it certainly didn't work out the way I hoped it would. And Donna was very angry with me. She felt that Tom, my husband who's passed, did not deliver this favor that he and I had promised we would deliver. I felt like I had said, you know, we'll give it our best shot. But I wasn't so good at client control back then.
So it sounds like Donna Mother is angry at you for not delivering what you had promised to deliver to help her son Ramsay.
Yes,
Yes?
she has a bad temper. Yes.
Okay. Especially when it comes to the protection of her children.
Especially when it came to anything.
Okay.
I mean, she could be very kind, and she could have a bad temper. But, you know, it's not mutually exclusive.
In any case, shortly thereafter, Ramsay packs up and comes home to Wayne State.
Yes.
You said that you all live in pretty close proximity. How many times in the last year, say 2013, did you visit Ramsay at his condominium?
Ramsay usually came to my house, but I did go over there.
Can you give me a number?
A couple times.
2 times. What about the year before, 2012?
I don't think I ever went to his condo in 2012 because he was staying back at my brother's.
Okay. What about, we know from from other testimony that he bought that condo and moved in around 2006 or 7.
He was always in the state of fixing it up, so a lot of times he would be at my brother's because my brother was constantly complaining how he was eating all their food.
And when you were there the 2 times in 2013, describe how you saw the condominium on the inside.
Oh, it was mostly fixed up. We were actually, my boyfriend was looking for a condo, so I thought it would help Ramsay. He could collect rent, and it would help Mike because it was, close to me. So we went there and checked it out.
Other witnesses have talked about a lot of what seem to be unfinished home improvement projects. Did you notice anything like that?
Yes, there was still one room that wasn't finished, but actually by the time I went with Mike to look at it, well, I went, and then a couple days later I brought Mike over. He had completed quite a bit of it finally, and there was one room left undone, and then he had a partially finished wall in the basement that he said he would finish that off if Mike wanted to use that when his son came to visit for like a hangout room. So,
did it appear to you that when he was living there by himself, he was a good housekeeper?
I mean, the day we were looking at it to rent it, and my boyfriend is an attorney, so he would want somewhere nice. So the day that we went to look at it, it was all cleaned up. I mean, everything was all swept up. There was yes.
It appeared to have been staged to show.
I don't know. He just swept the floor, dusted. I don't know if he had enough furniture to stage it.
What about
yes,
his dog? Did you know Ramsay had a dog for a short time?
Red. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did he have the dog?
I'm sorry, I don't know. A year or two.
A year or two.
Hallway, and I grabbed his arm. I was crying and said, "Is there anything we can do?" And he indicated he was in complete organ failure.
Were you aware that Dan had long been suffering with heart disease?
Yes, I believe his heart was a contributing factor, but he didn't die of a heart attack. He went into organ failure from a massive infection because the doctor told me they tried giving him IV antibiotics and basically said there's no hope.
If his death certificate indicates that coronary heart disease was a secondary contributing factor to his death, do you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
Okay. May I approach the witness and ask you? Thank you. Look at that document. Now, I know you indicated you hadn't seen his death certificate before, but I'll ask you the same question again.
I've never seen this.
Oh. No. And what does it say under causes of death under Part 2?
Part 2, coronary artery disease, cellulitis, buttocks.
Okay. Does it mention anything there about a B12 injection or some type of infection?
Well, cellulitis is an infection.
And how do you know that?
Do you really want to know how I know?
Well.
Okay, because I've had it's a long explanation.
Well,
I had a murder
what if
trial.
We say you don't have medical training, but you educated yourself recently, and you're familiar with the term?
Yeah, I recently had a murder trial of a child where it was a little boy and he had cellulitis. I asked the medical examiner what that was, He said that's an infection that goes all the way into the tissue, almost to the bone.
And that also is listed as a contributing factor in his death.
Multi-organ failure, liver failure, cirrhosis, hepatitis C, coronary artery disease, cellulitis, buttocks.
Did you? And you said you knew that your brother suffered from heart disease?
I knew he couldn't have interferon for his hepatitis C because he told me, yes, and Donna, that his heart was not in a condition that it could take it. Interferon's really strong. It's like a radiation almost.
He couldn't take that because of his heart condition.
Right.
All right. At this time, Your Honor, I believe we have a stipulation. The defense will be offering the certified death certificate of Daniel J. Scrivo, issued out of the clerk of this county. It's been marked for identification purposes as Defendant's Exhibit D. D.
It will be received, is that right, Mr. Donna?
That's correct. All right. May it publish to the jury?
You may.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, you don't mean to suggest somehow that Donna is indirectly responsible for your brother's death? You're pausing.
I'm not sure. I didn't think before my nephew died, no, but I did wonder why she gave him a shot, knowing that...
You were aware that he was prescribed to have that vitamin shot that was prescribed by his physician? You weren't aware of that?
Danny told me he was supposed to take it under his tongue. So I was curious why I did the shot. I didn't think anything of it, to be honest. I just, when Ramsay died, I did kind of wonder, like, why did she give him the shot? How come the doctor didn't give him the shot?
But yet you knew she was, once he made her aware of the red marks, she was urging him to get it looked at by a physician, correct?
Yes.
And he never did that.
He went in the following week, right, and by then he was in organ failure. Yes, right.
Okay, so it was at her urging that he should have gone to see the doctor for that, and he didn't do it very quickly.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. You indicated that you were instrumental in having Ramsay committed within days of his father passing.
I took him to the hospital the day his father died because Donna indicated to me he may have taken the missing vial of
the morphine. Better safe than sorry, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
You got him in there.
Me and Jay took him, yeah. My nephew asked for my help.
When you say Jay, do you mean Jason Scrivo?
I'm sorry, yes. My nephew, Jason Scrivo, asked me if I would help.
All right. And this was an involuntary commitment, was it not?
Yes.
That means against the person's will.
Yes, he told me he didn't take the morphine and he didn't need to go, but I was afraid to be wrong.
So you went that extra step and had him committed for psychiatric treatment.
Yeah, mainly I wanted them to test him and make sure he didn't have a whole vial of morphine in there.
And at that time, you knew or you suspected that he had some kind of mental illness?
I knew he suffered from an anxiety disorder, and Donna told me she was afraid he took all that morphine.
You knew he had suicidal ideas?
No.
He didn't?
He never told me he wanted to kill himself, ever. In fact, no, he never did. So
you today under oath are denying knowing that he had any suicidal ideation?
No, I'm telling you that Donna told me that. I'm just saying Ramsay didn't tell me that. I mean, I understand I'm under oath. I'm telling you, Ramsay never told me that he wanted to kill himself. Donna said she was concerned he took the morphine and that she was worried that, you know, he would kill himself the day my brother died. So Jason and I took him to be on the safe side. I'm just saying he never told me that.
But you shared in her concern that he was possibly suicidal.
I shared in her concern if that vial of morphine was not in my brother Dan, that it could be in Ramsay. I didn't know that he took it to commit suicide. I thought, well, I really didn't think he took it. I just wasn't sure. So to be on the safe side, I asked Jason, did you see him take anything? And he said, no, but I fell asleep for part of the time. So Jason and I went back and forth and finally decided it was better to be safe than sorry.
When you sought to have him involuntarily committed, did you represent to anyone that he was possibly suicidal?
I told the doctors that his mother was concerned he might be suicidal and that she indicated to me she thought he might have taken the missing vial of morphine. I figured she's his mother. So if she tells me that, I'm going to take that pretty seriously, especially since we're all looking around, there seems to be some morphine missing. That was pretty worrisome to me.
So you had a good faith belief that he was in fact suicidal?
I had a good faith belief that the morphine was missing. I did not know if he was suicidal, and he insisted to me he was not. So to be safe, I don't know how many times I can say this, but to be safe, I took him in to have him checked. Yes, I was concerned by what Donna told me, as anybody would be.
We know that in the context of this involuntary commitment that you initiated, a petition was signed by Jason's physician. Do you know the name of Jason's physician?
I can't remember her name.
If I say the name Valerie Hudson, M.D., does that ring a bell?
Yes.
That is his personal physician.
Do you mean Jason's physician or Ramsay?
I'm sorry, Ramsay's physician.
Yes, it was Donna sent me to Ramsay's doctor. Yes.
And are you aware that Ramsay's doctor filled out a commitment petition that says, and I'll quote, "Suicidal plan. Ramsay's father died this morning. Morphine is missing. Ramsay is difficult." Were you aware of that?
I'm sure I knew at what time what she wrote, but I can't remember exactly. I'm sorry. Could I look at it?
Well, let me ask you a couple more questions. You signed off on that statement as representing yourself to be Ramsay's lawyer. Is that so?
I don't know if I represented to be his guardian ad litem, maybe. Donna asked me and Jason if
Let me stop you.
If I could.
I'm going to approach you with the court's permission and ask you to look at this document and just read it to yourself, please.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, does that refresh your memory?
It does. Yes, thank you. Sorry, that's the morning my brother died, so I was a little distraught.
Now, do you recall signing off on the physician's petition wherein the physician indicates that there was a suicidal plan?
Yes.
And you endorsed that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I told Dr. Hudson what Donna had told me, and she wrote it down, and I signed it. Yes.
Cool. Does it say on here that you're signing it because someone told you?
Well, that's the doctor's handwriting, not mine. And Donna called Dr. Hudson. They spoke, Dr. Hudson wrote down whatever occurred in their conversation, which I wasn't privy to. When I got to Dr. Hudson's office, it was filled out already.
And you
So
endorsed it.
I signed it because I assumed his mother knew his medical condition better than me. But
All right.
there was, okay.
All right.
Yes,
I think we
signed
get
it.
it. Okay.
I endorsed it, I signed it, yes.
When you first learned that Ramsay was missing, what was the first thought that crossed your mind?
Thought he got arrested.
Do you still think you knew him that well?
I don't understand the question.
Aside from his mother and father, who in the family knew Ramsay better than you?
Maybe a couple of his cousins his own age. He was pretty close to my nephew Jim, and obviously his brother, and then probably me after that.
And your first thought was, he must have got arrested?
Yeah, I thought he fell off the wagon, and I was disappointed because he was doing so well in his probation.
You said you were aware of his drinking habits before he got placed on probation. What were his regular drinking habits?
I was aware he had an issue with drinking from his teenage years on, in that when his anxiety was particularly bad, he would self-medicate.
Does that mean abuse drugs?
I don't think he ever used drugs. More alcohol was his drug of choice.
He would self-medicate with alcohol?
Right. You know, a lot of people have mental health issues when they're not taking their meds, or it's a particularly stressful time. They'll resort to that. It makes them feel better temporarily. Over the years, he would call me if he was having an issue. And I would do what I could for him, including, writing a letter for him, that type of thing, trying to help him get on probation.
So, I guess we were talking about his drinking habits. Would he drink every day?
I don't know.
So maybe
sorry.
you're not so familiar with his drinking habits.
I know he drank on occasion, and he would call me if he had an issue. So I knew drinking was a problem for him. As to how many drinks a day, or if I didn't live with him.
You started to tell us about Donna leaving her post at St. John. That's a big hospital at 7 and Mac, is it not?
Yes.
It's a very well-regarded hospital. And how long did Donna work there?
Many years.
I think you said 30. Is that close?
A long time, yes.
Did you know anyone else that worked there with her?
Yes.
And did they ever indicate to you that she was anything less than a great nurse?
Yes.
You said that she had to leave. Do you know about when that was?
My brother called me and asked for a lawyer.
Can you give me a time frame, though?
I'm trying to think. So we had to have been speaking again, because he would have never called me otherwise. He said, she needs a lawyer. Did I have a good recommendation?
Is this
2008?
the point? Excuse me. Is this the point in time when you're not speaking because of the problem at Western?
Right.
You said that was 8 years?
About 8.5 years.
Okay. So what's the time frame when you found out she left St. John?
It had to be late in 2007 or early 2008, because my brother and I were speaking regularly again.
Were you aware then that Donna had suffered a heart attack?
Yes.
Were you aware then that she was treated for that heart attack at St. John Hospital?
Yes.
Were you aware that she nearly died after the surgery?
Yes.
How did you know that?
My nephew Jason told me.
And isn't it a fact that the reason Dan talked to you about getting a lawyer is because Dan wanted to sue the hospital for almost killing his wife?
No, it was before the heart attack. No, it was something to... I mean, I'm getting into conversations that I had with my brother, but something to do with...
Your Honor, if we can approach at this point. Sure.
What the hell am I doing?
So you were aware that Donna suffered a heart attack, yes?
Yes.
And she was treated for it at St. John Hospital, yes?
I didn't know which hospital, but I assume because it's near their house, yes.
And you were aware that during the recovery stage, she was nearly killed while at the hospital, or died?
I thought from talking to my brother she had an allergic reaction to one of the things in the anesthesia. I think it's succinylcholine, and that she went into heart failure, but that is from secondhand knowledge, you know.
Fair enough. And shortly thereafter, she was no longer at St. John Hospital.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Now, then after that time in the spring when Ramsay was involuntarily committed for his suicidal ideation and other mental issues, Donna stepped up and petitioned to be appointed his guardian.
Yes.
And you're aware of that?
Yes.
And you said you thought maybe that's not the best thing because of the mother-son relationship.
Yes.
Did I hear you correctly? Did you take any measures to have a substitute for Donna in that guardianship capacity?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever approach Donna and say, look, this is not a good idea, you're too close, I'll be his guardian?
I talked to Ramsay about coming to live with me.
Right.
And I told him that I would do that. He indicated he didn't want a guardian at all. So he wanted to do, you know, he didn't seem interested.
That was no surprise, was it? He had just been involuntarily committed. He's 32 years old. He's a grown man.
Yeah, he said he was doing well on his probation. He didn't want to do that.
So you didn't go to court and step up and say, look, Judge, I'll be his guardian. Right?
No, I wish I had.
Let's take a moment.
No, I did not.
All right. When you talked to Donna about doing something on Facebook or putting up posters, and she seemed hesitant because she said it might embarrass him.
Yes.
Did you agree that it would have been potentially embarrassing?
No, I thought it was nuts. I thought we should definitely put something on Facebook, but...
You have an account on Facebook. You're friends with Ramsay?
Yes.
You could have taken it upon yourself to do that if you thought it was so important, didn't you? Or couldn't you? And you didn't do that? All right.
Yes.
Did you put up posters? It looks like you have photographs in your possession. Did you go around the neighborhood and tack up posters and say, "Kid missing"?
No, I talked to Margaret. I called the police and talked to my law enforcement friends to help look for him. I called the jail. I called all my family members. I didn't put up a poster.
You are testifying for the prosecution because you believe Donna Scrivo killed her son. Isn't that a fact?
I don't want to, but I do. I think she snapped.
You're
Yes.
very eager to come to court and testify. Isn't that so?
No.
I saw you in the back of the courtroom yesterday flipping through papers, probably reading your statement. Did you look at your statement that you wrote for the police a year ago?
I was looking at a computer crimes police report. I had to sign warrants yesterday on a case of mine. I didn't look at my statement ever
All right.
since I talked to the police.
You didn't prepare for your testimony today?
I spoke to Mr. Cataldo. He knows what I do for a living. I don't think he really felt like he needed to spend much time preparing me. I honestly didn't look at my statement at all that I made, when Ramsay was
You
discovered.
talked about seeing some scratches on her forearms,
Yeah.
back of her hands. Then you were asked a question about seeing any bruises on her body.
I don't remember seeing bruises. I remember the scratches.
You didn't see her undressed, did you?
Oh, no. She had on like a 3/4 length shirt, and there were some scratches on her arms.
Okay, so the only thing you could see was her face and the back of her hands and arms.
Right. She had on like a V-neck, but no, I don't recall seeing anything else but those scratches.
And if she had bruises anywhere else on her body, you wouldn't be in a position to know that.
No, I would not.
All right. I thank you for your testimony. I'm sorry I got you upset. That wasn't my intent. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cataldo.
I asked you to testify because you had some information necessary for the presentation of my case.
Yes, I would rather be anyplace else. Yes.
It wasn't your goal to come here and convict. You were subpoenaed here to provide information.
No, it is the saddest thing in the world. No. I'm not eager to convict. I owe it to Ramsay to be truthful.
There was no autopsy performed on your brother?
None.
There was no toxicology then done on your brother?
No.
You indicated there was no morphine in Ramsay's system?
None. Correct.
And we still had a bottle of morphine missing at the end?
Yes.
You indicate you spoke to the doctors and Donna, and where she injected him was an infection?
That's the cellulitis. Yes.
You indicated the doctors indicated to you that infection then accelerated the sepsis and the death?
Correct.
Were you fighting with Donna at the time of your brother's death?
No.
Was there any animosity between you and Donna at the time of your brother's death?
No.
Would it be safe to say that you then took her at her word when you took Ramsay down?
Yes.
Did you realize in Ramsay's statement to the doctor, part of what Mr. Haddad has already read in, that in the doctor's handwriting it indicates Ramsay thinks someone was responsible for his father's death?
I had heard that, yes.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Haddad?
Was there a coroner's inquest or any questions raised regarding the events surrounding your brother's death?
There was not a coroner's inquest. The St. Clair Shores police seemed pretty concerned about the missing vial of morphine, but I think the fact that I was there, my presence, and my nephew Jay was a Detroit firefighter,
The thought that the morphine might be in Ramsay, they kind of backed down. At first, they were pretty antagonistic.
Don't you suppose if he had died of a morphine overdose, the doctors would have recognized that?
He never saw a doctor after he died. There was no medical examiner. I think we thought he was in a lot of pain, that if she gave him the rest of the morphine, he was dying. I mean, it wasn't like he was going to come back. He wasn't going to get better. My nephew, Jason, already lost one parent.
You know, as a lawyer, that in the state of Michigan, a death certificate must be signed by a physician, correct?
I do know that, and I
And
kind
the
of wondered
physician
about that.
is ethically required to accurately state the cause of death. Isn't that so? I'll take that as a yes. You can't.
Well, you can't take it as yes. That's what I understand. Yes.
Okay. And there's no indication from his own doctors that drugs or morphine or whatever, B12, contributed to his death in any way. Isn't that so?
I wasn't aware a doctor came to the house, but I might have been at the hospital with Ramsay.
Let me repeat the question. There's no indication on the official death certificate, which is required by law to be certified by the treating physician. There's no indication that drugs or morphine or B12 contributed in any way to Dan Scrivo's death. Isn't that so?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Cataldo.
No further questions, sir.
All right. Ma'am, you're excused.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
This time we would call Mike Kozlowski.
Step right up here, sir, please. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
So help you God.
I do.
Be seated, give your name to the reporter, and spell your last name.
Michael, last name is K-U-S-L-U-S-K.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I call you Mike.
Yes.
Mike, none of the amplifiers, listen to me, none of the microphones are amplified. Therefore, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up.
Yeah, yes, sir. So, pardon me.
All right. Would you like some water?
No, I'm good.
All right. We got an outdoor voice. Yes, thank you. Mike, how are you employed?
I'm a forensic scientist with the Michigan State Police
And how long have you been a forensic scientist with the Michigan State Police?
for 6 years.
What is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in applied physics from Wayne State University and a master's degree in forensic science from George Washington University.
Physics? Okay. Wow. When in your regular job with the Michigan State Police in the lab, you're a civilian employee?
Correct.
What is it that you normally work on? What is it? We've already had Jennifer Summers testify from the biology unit, and we've had Amy Alta-Slavin testify as to DNA. What is your specialty?
My specialty is firearms examination, but I also am a bloodstain pattern analyst as well.
Were you two, I guess, as part of your position at MSP, then trained in field work?
Yes.
Would you explain to the jury what training you've had in field work?
I've had in-service training in crime scene processing through the state police, and then I've also had training in crime scene photography within the state police and then externally as well, and then crime scene reconstruction and bloodstain pattern analysis.
Were you part of the team, or were you the leader of the team that was first called by the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department to gather evidence on the body parts that were found on January 30th of 2014 off of Fred Moore Highway?
Yes.
Were you the leader of that team? I see your name on lots of stuff. I mean, is there a leader when the MSP team goes out? Because I know they bring a trailer and there's everything else. And
I mean, in a sense, I mean, we try to just coordinate everybody's activities. I do the call out for the laboratory,
Okay.
so I call everybody else out, and that's my role as a leader.
When you're doing the call out, do you look to get people in specific fields, or is it just all of you are trained and you just want as many trained bodies as you can get out there?
A little of both. We recognize that we're going to need certain specialties, and I will call certain people. At the first scene, because there were tire tracks involved, I called a couple of our trace evidence analysts who do tread pattern examination, and then for myself, I was more there as a general crime scene processing person.
We've had Detective Rickert testify to, and we've shown a lot of photographs. I don't really want to show the photographs again.
Sure.
But I would like you, if you would, to lead us through your approach as the evidence gatherers in that situation. What is the approach? What are you trained to do? And how do we have the people fan out and begin to process the various places where body parts were found?
Certainly. And may I refer to my report
Yes,
as needed?
yes.
Pull it out for it right now.
And if I could, then let us do that. Again, the benefit that you have is two other experts from your department have testified before, so we know that in fact reports are generated. And was a then report generated as a result of your activities at the scene on Fredmore Highway?
Yes.
And is that report listed, I guess, as which one is it? Record number 1 or record number 5?
Record number 1 for
record number 1
for Fredmore or for Fredmore Highway on Ellington Road.
That's fine. If you need to review the report at any time, that's fine. Just let us know. We're not going to introduce it as an exhibit, but if it's a road map for you, that's just fine.
When we arrive at a crime scene, usually the first thing we do is it takes us a little bit of time to get a team together and get our equipment and get out to the crime scene. And the protocol is for the department in that area to secure it until we arrive. And so when we arrive, the first thing we do is get a briefing from the investigators and then do an initial walkthrough of the scene to see what we actually are dealing with. Detective Rickard walked us through the scene. In this case, it was down Ellington Road. It was relatively extensive. Essentially, there were parts. There were body parts and other non-human evidence. I think there was a pop can and some other physical items that were along the road. While we were reviewing that, we also, the two other analysts were evaluating whether the tire impressions would be suitable for them. In other words, if they were comparison quality. Part of it was because of you've got a number of different. It's down a road, so there's potentially other things that could have gone over it, but also because there was a light snow coming down. And they found one set of tire impressions towards the far end of the scene that they focused on. So from that point on, the two of them, and then there was another evidence technician who joined them later on, they focused on that particular area. And then another evidence technician, Trooper Anschutz, and myself, we basically documented the evidence down the length of the road and collected the non-human physical items.
And I'm glad you made that distinction because Dr. Spitz has testified. So what I get a sense first is that to approach any of the body parts from the photographs that we've seen, you would actually have to potentially step on what could be potential tire tracks. So they were given priority first because of deteriorating weather conditions to see if they could take their impressions or photographs before you could then approach the bodies themselves.
We wanted to review for that first. As it turned out, everything pretty much down the length of the road, it wasn't an issue because most of the tread patterns weren't suitable for comparison. And I'm not an expert in it, but they can look at it and say, yeah, this is not going to be good enough, and they proceeded down to the ones at the end. Everything that we documented, that I myself and Trooper Anschutz documented, was open essentially for us to get to.
And when you indicate documented, what is it that you're saying specifically?
Basically, photographs, sketches, and notes. And in this particular case, the overall scene was, because it was such a large scene, the sheriff's department actually did a measurement through the total station, so we didn't actually have to do that aspect of it.
There's a new word that we've not heard before.
I'm sorry,
What is a
total station. Yeah. A total state, and I guess I should clarify this. Normally, what we would try to do in a smaller scene, and this is a very, very large scene. Normally, at a smaller scene, what we would try to do is to document the overall dimensions and also where the evidence items were. This was really a bunch of smaller scenes distributed along a very wide area. In outdoor crime scenes, and especially in accident investigations, police departments often use what's called total station, and it's essentially a surveying tool, and it allows them to gather dimensional distances and dimensions over long spaces, over long dimensions. And the most common way to picture a total station is if you ever drive down the road and you see the surveyors out there and they have the little tripod and they're taking their measurements.
The
It's
one guy
exactly the
stands
thing.
in front of me with this.
With one person with a pole and another person working on a device and a tripod. That is a total station device. It's the same device, just used for investigative purposes.
What Dr. Spitz was indicating, the body more or less belongs to them.
Correct.
And you had indicated in your statement that you were securing then the non-body pieces. Were there, I guess, a lot of those in this situation once it had been reviewed and the tire tracks and that sort of stuff?
Yes, and there's a little bit of overlap between what we do as crime scene investigators and what the medical examiner investigators will do. The body is strictly within the purview of the medical examiner's office, and in a normal crime scene, what we would do is we would document the area, the surrounding crime scene, and then at some point, once we're finished with our examination, we would have a medical examiner's investigator come in, and they do an examination of the victim. And then we there's a little overlap there where, once we don't really touch the body at all until they get there. Once they've done their examination, they sometimes will start to move the body around a little bit to examine it, and then we'll take additional photographs and so forth. But as far as where the medical examiner's job stops and where ours begins, it's a little bit of overlap there. Sometimes there may be items that are on a victim that we will take, but for the most part, if it's on the victim, that goes to the medical examiners. In this particular case, because there were body parts that were in plastic bags, some of them were sticking out, some of them had come out of the bag completely. We were documenting it, but we were not actually taking anything. And I don't want to jump ahead too far, but
No, that's fine. That's fine. Essentially, I guess, have you been on many scenes where we're talking about body parts scattered over a snowy landscape?
not like this, no.
The medical examiner's office and the state troopers, as well as the lab, actually do work together at the same time, at the same site, because the one goal is to secure all potential evidence.
Correct.
And therefore, if there's a body part, it may be laid on a sheet and the sheet wrapped up and everybody's present, being photographed and working together to make certain that nothing escapes.
Correct.
You'd indicated, and we've heard the testimony, that there were 7 different bags, so I'm assuming we're talking about 5 or 7 then different locations that you were servicing on Allington Road.
I think actually there were some of the locations had multiple bags in them.
Okay. And you were also then notified of bags that may have blown away, and the team secured those.
I think we may have encountered. I'd have to look. Pardon me for 1 second. Review. I don't have anything about it in my report.
Okay.
But
Detective
didn't
Ricker
document
didn't testify to something like that. I didn't know if he collected the bags or if you collected the bags, so that may have been my error. Ultimately, once the scene has been surveyed, photographed, body parts collected, evidence collected, do you make any decisions with the evidence that's collected?
The evidence is brought back to the laboratory, and then depends on the type of evidence. We usually try to direct the evidence towards the department the unit that's going to process it first, or where it has the highest evidentiary value.
So, for example, with the Coke bottle that was found, that was going to be sent to the biologic unit for DNA testing. Had there been, for example, a handgun found at the scene, that would have been then sent to your department.
Correct.
Once you were done as an evidence gatherer, what do you call yourself? What does the team call itself?
We call it crime scene response team.
Okay, the crime. Once you've completed your responsibilities there as a crime scene response team, do you have anything more to do with the evidence that was gathered on Fredmore Highway location?
No.
But more importantly for your testimony is, I did not want to minimize your involvement there, but I really saved you more or less for the Gary, the Gary Lane search warrant. So, as a result of your investigation in this case, or your involvement in this case, the crime scene response team was also then called out to attend to an address on Gary Lane in St. Clair Shores?
Correct.
And could you tell the jury what date that was?
That was January 31st of 2014.
Once again, how many from your organization are present to analyze this crime scene?
There was myself, and then there was another trooper from the laboratory, an evidence technician, a trooper on the road, and then there was Amanda Fozzi, who was a forensic scientist from a different laboratory, a biologist from a different laboratory. So we had 4 people altogether from MSP.
Explain to the jury, I guess, what the training and protocol is when we know we have a condo, an apartment, a house, a physical structure. What is first the plan? How is the plan formulated, and what was the plan formulated for this particular location?
In a typical indoor crime scene like this, the first priority is to document everything with photography and notes. And so we basically photographed the outside of the house and worked our way inward. We did an initial walkthrough in the carpeted areas and look for potential evidence, documenting any initial observations. In this particular case, part of it was that when we were called to do this, that there was potentially 2 crime scenes. Then when we arrived, there was really the one crime scene that became the primary focus. And then within fairly short order, realized that there was not much in the way of blood spatter, like big splashes of blood or anything like that. So it became a situation of documenting what was there and then primarily collecting bloodstain evidence, which Amanda Fozzi, the biologist, did the primary work on that, and I assisted her through the rest of the scene.
Are you given facts by the police department about the potential crime before you go in, and do you then use those facts in determining what rooms you're going to focus on or how you're going to proceed?
Yes, to some degree. In terms of what type of questions that they want to answer, or what
Yes.
they think might be significant.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. Or if they make an observation on evidence as well, we want to make sure that we capture that information pretty quickly so that that evidence doesn't get forgotten or trampled or anything like that.
Detective Ricker testified that when they went in initially, they saw some items in the bathroom, some suspicious activity in one of the bedrooms and a couple of other small areas. Does that, I guess, taint or drive your search, or do you still, regardless of what they saw, treat every room independently?
We still have to go through all the steps. And quite honestly, I've been to quite a few crime scenes where the initial information or the initial belief by the investigators turns out to not be correct. So we have to do our job the same way regardless. We still, essentially, I'd say it's the initial walkthrough where we judge what will and will not be done. But even then, as we're searching the crime scene, we may sometimes uncover evidence that then lead us in a new direction, and we have to process further in a particular direction. I don't necessarily think that happened in this case, but it's the type of thing that we're open to.
So initially, the whole place is room by room photographed?
Yes.
during that time, then there are other observations made and determinations made if that is potential evidence, and efforts made then to gather that evidence.
Right.
I'm going to, Your Honor, I would indicate that I have shown Mr. Haddad the next group of exhibits. They are People's Exhibits photographs number 85 to exhibits number 103. I don't believe there will be any objection to any of those exhibits.
No, that's correct, Your Honor.
All right, they will be received.
Okay, Mike, if you would, I'm going to ask you to step down.
Sure.
Because we're going to put everything up on the screen here and give that to you and ask you to go one by one. I'm going to first going to put up People's Exhibit number 85. And you'll excuse me, I've probably gone through and taken hundreds of your photographs and reduced them down to ones that are pertaining to this case. So would you explain now to the jury what this is and where this room is located in the house?
It's a bathroom. It's located on the second floor of the house. Essentially, it's a townhouse-style condo. If you walk in the front door, immediately in front of you is a stairwell. If you go up the stairwell, this is right at the top of the stairs. And there was,
Yes.
There were some blood stains on the door jamb here. We observed some discoloration in the bathtub, and at the bath, it didn't have a shower curtain or rings on the bathtub as well. And the general appearance of it looks like it's maybe in a state of renovation.
Moving to People's Exhibit number 86.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Forgive me, counsel. I didn't hear the witness's last few words of that last answer.
Would you repeat it, please?
Sorry, it just looked like it was in a state of renovation.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Did a lot of the condo look like it was in a state of renovation?
I think some of the upstairs did. Yes.
Okay. Keep your voice up for me. Now, this is People's Exhibit number 86. Would you indicate what we have in this photograph and why it was important to your crime scene technique?
It was, this is the interior, this is the bathtub. And it was the discoloration in the bathtub that caught our attention, and biologist Anatophazi swabbed the interior of the bathtub and tested that for the possible presence of blood. And I'm going to guess it meant that Jim Summers described why.
Yes.
What the significance of it. Later on, we also pulled the trap out of the drain.
Many people don't realize that. Would you point to that and explain to the jury why that's important?
Underneath the drain there, if something, water or anything goes down the drain, it doesn't just go into the drain straight down. On a normal drain, it goes down and there's a U-shaped area there, and it's called a trap. And the idea is, number one, if anything, if you lose something in a ring or anything like that, if it goes down there, it doesn't go down the drain, it's lost forever. But also, because there's a U-shaped area there, it fills with water and keeps sewer gas from coming up and filling the house. So at crime scenes, material will tend to go down and get trapped in the U-shaped pipe of the trap. We can go in, we went on the axis is on the other side of the wall from one of the bedrooms, pull off the panel and remove the trap and inspect the inside of that.
And that's over the course of experience you've learned that bodily fluids can be trapped in there, and so that's one of the standard places that you do check.
Yes.
Moving to 87. Would you describe this?
It's a bottle of Dawn dish soap that was discovered in the bathtub.
And that was, I believe, in the corner then, right? But the faucet is just over there to the left.
Correct. Right. This is the faucet right there, and then this is the dish soap right there.
And these are all photographs that were taken by your team?
Yes.
Moving to photograph number, People's Exhibit number 88. What are we seeing here that was captured by the photograph?
This is the sink, and actually what you're looking at is the residue that was from the trap. We pulled the trap, swabbed the interior of the trap for the presence of blood, and then afterwards, the sink had already been examined, poured the contents out to examine what was inside the trap itself. And there was kind of a grayish black debris that was inside the trap as well.
And some of that was captured then for testing purposes later?
I don't know if any of that actually was collected.
Would you have removed this trap first before you poured the other trap into it? Excellent.
And quite honestly, the sink looked clean, that's why.
All right. It didn't look like there was any action at the sink there?
Right.
Okay. I would indicate for the record, Your Honor, we did remove people's number, exhibit number, potential number 89. It was not relevant to this, so it will not go in. It will be blank. We'll move on
So
to...
when you moved 85 to 103, that's excluding 89?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're going to move on now to People's Exhibit number 90. Would you show us where we sort of indicate where we are and what circled and why it was circled?
This is the entrance to the to one of the bedrooms.
Yes.
I know which bedroom is this one. Call it by the right name. The southwest bedroom. The southwest bedroom, which is the larger of the two bedrooms, towards the front of the house. Right at the entranceway to that, there's an area of whitish staining that was there. There were a couple of areas that were in the, I don't want to say a hallway, but basically a common area that's in the middle of the second floor, and then there was a few whitish stained areas in the carpet inside the bedroom as well.
I see blue shoes there. Would you, I guess, explain how?
That's for boot covers, so when we're walking through the crime scene to not track material into the crime scene or to not take material away with us when we go.
Moving to People's Exhibit number 91.
This is at the entrance to the bathroom, and along the door jamb here and on the door stop area right here, there were a number of reddish brown stains, which were again.
All right. In looking then at Exhibit number 92, what do we have here?
Again, reddish brown stained areas that were sampled for presence of blood.
Now, you had indicated in your initial testimony that you mainly do ballistics, but you're also schooled in the area of blood spatter. Would you explain to the jury what we're talking about and if that is then an area that you became concerned with based on your information?
Sure. I have to throw out the caveat that because I didn't do a blood stain, we have to have a special separate request for blood stain pattern analysis before I'm allowed to give any type of conclusion or anything, because all my work has to be reviewed by a second person. I can talk in generalities. One of the things that we look at crime scenes is sometimes we have blood, what are referred to as blood spatter. Blood drops get projected out from injuries, from any type of impact or anything, any type of force. But there's also the transfer of blood, and essentially blood-stained objects brush up against something else and can sometimes transfer blood that way as well.
So basically, with my understanding, I'll get a little more specific, you can determine if blood was thrown against a wall or rubbed on a wall.
Most of the time we can differentiate. Sometimes it's difficult. Depends on the surface. But yes, sometimes.
Many times you can tell based on the way the blood is spattered on a wall what direction it came from.
Yes.
You can also sometimes tell what angle it came from.
Correct.
And that there's physically a difference between something being thrown or tossed or being applied to a wall versus something that actually just simply touches and rubs.
Right. And it depends on how much evidence there is. I guess in theory you could do this from a single blood stain, but for the most part, blood stain pattern analysis we incorporated in scenes where there's a lot of blood present. And in this case, when I evaluated the scene, it didn't seem that it would be useful to investigation.
And that's what my next question was. You indicate normally you would do it if you are requested, but as an expert in the field, when you're there acting as a crime scene responder, would you be able to make that suggestion based on what you see to an investigative organization if they had thought about it or had made a request?
It would definitely, it would be the type of thing that I'd be evaluating on the crime scene, and that's what I did in this case, evaluated whether it would be worth doing blood stain pattern analysis.
And you had decided then that this was...
I didn't think that it would be providing additional information.
Okay. All right. Therefore, when you identify in this photograph what would appear to be blood, one of the other individuals with you who is then trained in gathering
body fluid.
body fluid
identification.
would approach this and would then make the collection itself.
Right.
Moving to People's Exhibit number 93, would you describe what bedroom this is and what we're looking at?
This is the southwest bedroom again. This is, a minute ago, we showed you the photograph, the entrance of the doorway. This is inside the bedroom, and there were areas where there's whitish staining right here, and then there's another one that's closer to the door. And there was essentially whitish stained areas that you could visibly see traces of powder in there. It was as if there was white powder contaminated into the carpeting right there in those spots. And there were some areas of light reddish brown tint to it as well.
It doesn't stop you from investigating any further when you just simply see the stain and you see what would appear to be some sort of adulteration of the stain, does it?
No.
In fact, what in a situation like this did you do to go further than just simply photograph and to move around the top of that stain?
Again, we swabbed the stain for the possible presence of blood and also cut out a section of the carpet as well.
Why would you do that?
The swabbing to determine if it's worth taking additional samples for evidence. Essentially, when we're at a crime scene, especially one where it's looking for associative evidence, and I'll sidetrack. Primarily, we can kind of divide a lot of our activities into association and reconstruction. And association is just trying to link things together. If you think about like fingerprints are an example of associative evidence, where all it does is just say that somebody made contact with something. Other times we do reconstruction. And when in a case like this where we're doing associative work, the first step quite often is seeing if there's the possible presence for blood. If it comes back positive for that, then the analyst would take additional samples that can be tested for DNA down the road. If it comes back negative, we would probably just move on to the next area.
Moving to 94, People's Exhibit number 94, a little bit more of a close-up then. Why, I guess, what do the markings mean individually? Is that like where items were tested, or is that just simply identifying separate things?
Number 2, was swabbed, and there was a red-brown stained area in the middle, and that tested positive for the possible presence of blood, and so that area, a swab was taken, and the area 3 around here was tested, and it came back negative, so there was no swab collected.
But in an area like, say, number 2, would normally then you make an incision like that and cut that carpet up and flip it over and test again?
In this case, we actually just took a small section of the carpet. Because we had swabs that were tested positive for blood, normally I think I would cut out the carpet if it was, I've been at crime scenes where they've been extensively cleaned up and it was very difficult to tell from the top surface, and then we'll go to the lower surface. In this case, really, it was just taken more just as a sample of the blood and the white powder on it as well.
Because you already gotten a positive sample on top.
And had collected a swab.
And based on your experience, then the follow-up question is, in fact, sometimes just because the top is clean, evidence could be secured deeper down into the carpet, which is why samples like that can be taken.
Yes. Yes.
Exhibit number 95. What are we looking at here?
It's a red-brown stain on the wall. This is in the same room, still in the southwest bedroom. You can see the bathrooms across this little hall area there, and it was the only area that, and in that part of the room, there's a small reddish-brown stain in that particular area.
I mean, had you seen more of that, you might have considered to do more, but we have a lot of evidence that's being looked at on the floor and just one small spot on the wall.
Correct. I mean, the stains on the floor and towards the bathroom were fairly relatively straight area. This was just off by itself, and there was really nothing on the bed or anything else nearby.
Moving to exhibit number 96, let's sort of go to the stairwell now. Is this would you describe where this stairwell starts and what we see at the top of the stairwell.
This is essentially when you walk in the front door, there's a short landing right there, and then directly in front of you is the stairwell. And at the top of the stairwell is where you see the bathroom is lit up at the top. And the southwest bedroom is essentially you would turn a 180 turn and walk into the bedroom there. We observed bloodstains on the stringers, the little side areas.
Okay, but we'll go to that next. Let's go to People's Exhibit number 97. Should be a closer-up of that.
And there was an area right here that circled. Some of this other dark stuff is not one that's just
And I see
it's pink. But a circled area like that is what, right there and right there. These areas on the stringers is where we observed red-brown stains that were tested for possible presence of blood.
So what I call molding is actually a stringer?
Yes. This little wooden section here with the, what you call it, zigzag shape is referred to as a stringer.
All right. So there were multiple spots that were noticed on the stairwell and then
Captured by your team.
Yes.
Moving to number 98. What do we see here?
This is a blood stain on one of the on the handrail going down one side of the stair. And this is swallowed.
Exhibit number 99. Another photograph further down.
Yes. Area right there, red-brown stains along the string on one side.
Moving to exhibit number 100 now. Do you recall what door this is?
Yes, this is the storm door on the back of the house. So if you walk in the door, there's a stairwell going up immediately. If you go to your left, there's a living room, there's a dining room behind it, and then if you circle behind the stairwell, there's a kitchen. And going out the back of the kitchen is a door, and on the outside of the storm door, there's a reddish brown stain there that we swallowed as well.
Exhibit number 101 then?
And this is on the inside of the rear kitchen door. So if you walk in, go around the stairwell to the back of the kitchen, to the back door, this is the entry door. The storm door is obviously on the other side of it. There's a red-brown stain there, and there's a red-brown stain on the bottom of the door itself. That did not even really resemble blood. It looked more like paint or something like that. Something not.
Then finally, let's go to exhibit number 102. You had indicated that you had seen what looked to be adulterated spots in the bedroom. Then I'm going to assume you make a connection between this and that room?
Yes. There was, because there was a whitish powder in the southwest bedroom on the floor and a little bit in the outside access area, when we examined the vacuum cleaner was in the back bedroom. It was in the northwest bedroom. So if you come up the stairs, it's a little bit to the right and back. And there was the white powder in there, and there was a significant amount of white powder embedded on the bottom of the vacuum cleaner.
Go to exhibit 103, final exhibit. And that's just been a close-up.
Correct.
Again, would you explain just very quickly why it's laying on a yellow tarp and whose tarp that is and why you do that?
That's just our tarp. We just laid it out there while we were examining it and photographing it.
It also, the tarp not only protects that room, but because there's potential evidence on there, it'll fall onto the tarp.
Correct.
And you can gather it. Thank you. Have a seat. At this time, Your Honor, I have completed my direct examination.
All right, Mr. Kennedy.
Mr.
Kozlowski, yeah.
Kozlowski, upon your arrival, I'm only going to talk about Gary Lane for right now.
Certainly.
You said you got some direction from the detectives.
Yes.
Do you recall what exactly